Africa, the richest continent on the face of the earth. Just as the first man originated on this motherland mass, so still does Africa provide life to the world. From slave labor to natural resources to cultural exports that have changed how culture is defined, Africa remains a powerful influence of global society. So from where did the name of this place originate? And how does that provide the answer to the question over which so many obsess? Was Jesus black? I'm about to tell you. My information comes from two sources, which I will provide in the description below. The first is a Jewish historian named Josephus. The second is an African Nigerian by the name of Olaudah Equiano, who was enslaved by the white colonizers of America. Equiano references three different sources for his conclusions that I will also address. I will first read from Josephus, who says this, quote, Abraham, after this, married Keturah, by whom 6 sons were born to him, men of courage and of sagacious minds, Zambran and Jazar, and Madan, and Madian, and Jozabak, and Sus. Now the sons of Sus were Zabathan and Dadan. The sons of Dadan were Latuzim and Asur and Luom. The sons of Madian were Ephas and Ophren, and Anok, and Abidas, and Aldas. Now for all these sons and grandsons, Abraham contrived to settle them in colonies, and they took possession of Troglodytis and the country of Arabia the Happy, as far as it reaches to the Red Sea. It is related of this Ophren that he made war against Libya and took it, and that his grandchildren, when they inhabited it, called it from his name, Africa. And indeed, Alexander Polyhistor gives his attestation to what I here say, who speaks thus. Cleodemus the prophet, who was also called Malchus, who wrote a history of the Jews in agreement with the history of Moses, their legislator, relates that there were many sons born to Abraham by Keturah. Nay, he names 3 of them, Afer, Surim, and Japhran. That from Surim the land of Assyria denominated, and that from the other 2, Afer and Japhran, the country of Africa took its name, because these men were auxiliaries to Hercules when he fought against Libya and Antaeus, and that Hercules married Aphra's daughter, and of her begat a son, Diodorus, and that Sophon was his son, from whom that barbarous people called Cephasians were denominated. End quote. According to Josephus, Africa was named after Abraham's son or grandson. Would it then be a stretch in logic to deduce from this that Abraham was black? Abraham was black, and thus Isaac, Jacob, and even Esau were black. Could it be that black people were, in ancient times as they are today, a majority, perhaps even more so during that time? Keeping that in mind, how far of a stretch would it be to infer from this that Jesus had melanated skin and was thus a black man. Moving on to my next source, the autobiography of a slave by the name of Olaudah Equiano. In his book, Equiano makes reference to his Hebrew heritage as follows, quote, "Such is the imperfect sketch with which my memory has furnished me of the manners and customs of a people among whom I first drew my breath. And here I cannot forbear suggesting what has long struck me very forcibly, namely the strong analogy which, even by this sketch imperfect as it is, appears to prevail in the manners and customs of my countrymen and those of the Jews before they reached the land of promise, and particularly the patriarchs, while they were yet in that pastoral state which is described in Genesis. An analogy which alone would induce me to think that the one people had sprung from the other. Indeed, this is the opinion of Dr. Gill, who, in his commentary on Genesis, very ably deduces the pedigree of the Africans from Afer and Afra, the descendants of Abraham by Keturah his wife and concubine, for both these titles are applied to her. It is also comfortable to the sentiments of Dr. John Clarke, formerly Dean of Sarum, in his Truth of the Christian Religion. Both these authors concur in ascribing to us this original. The reasonings of those gentlemen are still further confirmed by the scripture chronology of the Reverend Arthur Bedford." End quote. You might be wondering about the identities of these men Olaudah is referencing. Dr. Gill is Dr. John Gill, who wrote a commentary on the entire Bible titled John Gill's Exposition of the Bible. Dr. John Clarke used Josephus as a reference to assert Africa as the namesake of Afer in the book mentioned by Equiano. Arthur Bedford translated the work of a French author, Hugo Grotius, titled The Truth of the Christian Religion in 6 books. Of the subject, Grotius says, quote, "Namely those that descended from Keturah, concerning whom there is a famous place of Alexander the historian in Josephus' book, chapter 16, which Eusebius quotes in his Gospel preparation, book 9, chapter 20. Cleodemus the prophet, who is called Malchus, in his relation of the Jews, gives us the same history as Moses their lawgiver, viz., that Abraham had many children by Keturah, to 3 of which he gave the names Afer, Aser, and Afra. Assyria is so called from Aser, and from the other 2, Afer and Afra, the city of Afra and the country Africa are denominated." End quote. An additional witness to this is the Hebrew word Afer. There are multiple roots and derivations that provide deeper insight into the meaning of the name. The transliteration of the letter F is Pe or Fe. So Afer in the Hebrew would be spelled from left to right, Resh, Fe, Aleph. It could also be spelled Resh, Fe, Ein. Afer as Resh, Fe, Aleph is Strong's H666 and H665, which mean respectively a turban or ashes and to bestrew ashes. Afer, spelled with Ein, expounds further on the sentiment. Excluding the vowel jots and tittles, Strong's H6080, H6081, H6082, and H6083 all spell Afer. Respectively, they mean to be dust, gazelle, a fawn from the dusty color and ashes, dust, earth, ground, mortar, powder, rubbish. The way this seamlessly fits together is not a coincidence. So essentially, Afer means earth, or the color of the earth, which is brown, or as the ancients used to say, Adam, or as the white race calls them, black people. Now, my definition of black significantly differs from how the ethnocultural majority in America defines black. If you have melanin in your skin, you are black. If you have a genetic mutation of albinism, but your parents are black, you're black. But you are a black with no pigment, therefore you are white, of black descent. When you look at all of the people of the earth who reflect the color of the dust of the earth, you see blackness, a beautiful, diverse range of browns and beiges seamlessly mingled with every type of facial feature imaginable. The indigenous Native Americans are black people. Pacific Islanders and Australian Aborigines are black. Native Asians from Japan to Tibet to India are black. Native Arabs are black. The Inuit people are black. So I don't think it's unreasonable to conclude that Jesus was a black man. Now, if you have misotomy issues, this is going to make you feel uncomfortable, which means you may wonder why it matters. Why does the color of Jesus' skin matter? And my answer to you is, why doesn't it matter to you? Does truth matter?